class 169 on the Golden Doves. In the last class, I had to stop in the middle because I had a phone call. My apologies for that. But we were in the middle of footnote 80 on page 184. We are dealing with the ta'amim, that oftentimes it was ta'amim in the Mishnah. And depending on how you read a particular passage, so sometimes there would be a need to connect two sentences indicating that they're part of the same idea, and sometimes there would be a need to separate two sentences. So that's what we're up to. So consider for yeah. So the expression keroch v'teneh, connect these terms and recite them together. So when you see that expression in the Gemara, keroch v'teneh, this serves to indicate that the terms in question, usually recited as two different passages, must be recited as one, right? So again, the melody affects the meaning. So it could be that there was a mistake in the melody and they were reciting a passage which should have been one passage, but they recited it as two passages by stopping in the middle. And then the Gemara says, no, keroch v'teneh, you should be connecting them. There is some evidence that other Tannaitic collections, baraitot, were chanted too. Consider, for instance, Ketuvot 11b, where a difficult baraita is expounded on the basis of the type of explanation following a technical term, hachi ka'amar, the following was meant. So you see this a lot in the Gemara where it says hachi ka'amar. Hachi ka'amar means this is what he meant to say, right? So you quote a baraita, and then the Gemara says on the baraita, or you quote a Mishna, and the Gemara says on the Mishna, hachi ka'amar, this is what was meant. Sometimes this explanation presupposes that there is a lacuna, in which case it is explicitly stated that the text is wanting. So sometimes hachi ka'amar means there's an error, so to speak, in the transmission of the halacha, or maybe the error was in the formulation of the halacha, and we're saying there's some missing words. So hachi ka'amar, hasure mahsela, there's something missing, right? And this is what the words that should be added. So that you have sometimes. But at other times, this explanation is semantically implicit in the text, and there is no need to presuppose that some words are wanted. But not every time you see hachi ka'amar, you're saying there's missing words. But rather, the meaning that we're now going to explain in the text is already implicit in the text. Yep. Occasionally, however, a lengthy explanation is interpolated, but sometimes this missing explanation or this implicit explanation is not always implicit, right? Sometimes the Gemara is going to add a lengthy explanation which really is not implicit in the text at all. And yet, the text is not declared to be wanting. Now, in the case of the Gemara in Masechet Ketuvot that my father is referring to, it doesn't say it doesn't say this beraita is missing words. Why? Meaning the Gemara is giving you this lengthy explanation on the beraita. Well, if it's giving a lengthy explanation on the baraita, and the explanation is not implicit in the words of the baraita, well, this would suggest, therefore, that there's some words missing. But no, it doesn't say chasure mechsela. It doesn't say there's a lacuna. Why? The solution to this problem is found in Asifat Zekenim Ketuvot. That it was known that the baraita contained two disconnected statements. It has to do with the ta'amim. What is the correct melody through which to read the baraita? They were reading it as if though it's one long statement. And based on that melody, they explained the baraita as they explained it. But the real meaning of the baraita is based on, or the correct reading of the baraita would be that it's two sentences. And when you split it into two sentences, then the lengthy explanation becomes implicit in the text. Accordingly, this baraita is a kind of riddle, requiring decoding, rather than a single faulty statement to be reconstructed by positing a hypothetically larger text from which the present statement originated. Okay? That would have been a possibility. You could have posited that there was a larger text and that the original text was larger and longer, and the final version of the text is a short version of a larger text, and we're going to give you what the larger text was. That could be. But that's the way this particular baraita was decoded. This is why the Talmud does not declare the baraita to be hasurei mechsera. So if there was a larger text from which the actual halacha baraita was derived, and they created a shorter version of the larger text, then it would be correct to say hasurei mechsera be'achi kataneh. But it doesn't say that here, so that's not the case. But how could it be known whether the text contained a single but faulty statement, right? In which case it would be hasurei mechsera be'achi kataneh, or two complete but disconnected ones. So it has to do with the melody that you read the baraita. If the baraita was chanted as was the Mishna in the Sephardic and Oriental traditions, they could not help knowing whether it contained one or two statements. Because again, as I mentioned previously, the end of the Mishnah always ends with the melody. And then you would go to the next Mishnah. So here, if you had two baraitot and you read it with the melody, then you would understand, based on the melody, that the baraita is actually two baraitot, or two halachot. This tradition was not known in France. Had it been, there would have been no need to prove where a sentence in the Mishnah ended, because in some copies there is a blank space after the word in question. We don't need a blank space after the word in question to tell us where the baraita ended, because we used to read, or the Mishnah ended, because we used to read it with a particular melody, and based on the melody, we knew the correct place where the baraita is to. One baraita ends and the next baraita begins. Okay, I'm going now back to the main text. That was footnote 80. It was quite lengthy. Okay. Obviously, not all who mastered Girsa, remember we talked about Girsa, which is the level where you know the text by heart, and of course you know how to read the text correctly, and then you know the proper melody of the text. There were those whose sole concern was Girsa and not the understanding of the text. And there was people who that's what their specialty was. If you wanted to know what is Gemara Masechet Shabbat Perek Aleph, Perek Bet, Perek Gimel, give me the first Mishnah in Perek Gimel, right? Kirashi Sikwa Bikashu Bigvara, and so on. So that's where the expertise. They didn't know the meaning, or they weren't fluent. I don't want to say they didn't know the meaning, but that wasn't their specialty. That wasn't their expertise. They had no added value in that. Their added value was in the knowledge of the actual wording of the halachot. Some rabbis were disturbed by this and complained, and then some Chachamim said this is not proper. About these generations that proceed in their studies of Torah as blind, right? Criticizing that approach. All read, but they do not know what they read. All recite Mishnah, but they do not know what they recite. All right. The professional Tana memorized 4 collections of oral law: Hilcheta, which is a Mishnah; Sifra, which is the Midrash Halacha, Sifra Devera, written on the book of Vayikra; Sifre, which is the Midrash Halacha of Rabbi Shimon on the book of Devarim; and Tosefta, which was Rabbi Yehuda's elaboration on the Mishnah. Let's look at footnote 82 and then footnote 83. See Igaret Sherira Gaon. Some medieval European Talmudists disagreed as to how many and which of the orders of the Mishnah were supposed to be known by heart. Okay, fine. Let's look at footnote 83. there were different opinions concerning what some of the collections contained. For example, the Gaonic text, which is corrupt, includes Torat Kohanim with the Tosefta in the fourth. That's interesting. So the Sifra would be with the Tosefta in that particular text, which is corrupt. In the fourth collection, under the title Sifre, it includes 4 rabbinic midrashim: Genesis, Rambam, Bechilta, Sifrei Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Okay. The first 4 in the Talmudic riddle, one may not use, that is, be served by an individual who recites Tanakh. Okay, so this is all I'm going to study today. I want to look at this Gemara more closely next time, because it's a very subtle Gemara that he's quoting here in the footnotes, and it really is worth the time to study it carefully and correctly.